The drama is finally over in Golden State, and Warriors fans can finally exhale. Jonathan Kuminga has officially signed a new contract extension. 2 years, 48 milhões e meio de dólares. The saga that stretched over the offseason, filled with speculation, media attention, and fan frustration, now finally comes to a close. And while the deal brings clarity, it still leaves behind a few raised eyebrows and a bunch of lingering questions. Because let's be honest here, why not just take the original 3-year offer? That extra year could have meant more long-term security, especially for a player who's still on the rise and hasn't cemented himself as a cornerstone yet. But hey, maybe that's the mindset, betting on himself, showing the league what he's really capable of, and possibly eyeing a much bigger payday down the line. With the dust settled and the ink dry, the focus now shifts to basketball. Kuminga steps into this season with a clean slate and a golden opportunity. The Warriors need him to show up not just as a role player, but as a real difference maker. The rotation is filling out. The depth chart is starting to take shape. And with Kuminga at the 3, that frees up Jimmy Butler to operate more fluidly at the 2. On paper, the pieces fit. But games aren't won on paper. What matters now is how Kuminga responds when the lights are on and the pressure's real. It's like Draymond Green said, not just about Kuminga, but about NBA negotiations in general. These things are never easy. There's always back and forth, posturing, strategy, and a whole lot of who's going to blink first. Very rarely do both sides walk away feeling like they won. But in this case, the Warriors locked in a young, athletic wing with upside, and Kuminga gets his payday plus a 15% trade kicker if things go south. That's the kicker, literally and figuratively. Because come January Quins, Kuminga becomes eligible to be traded. And whether that happens or not depends entirely on how he performs in these next few months. This team has championship aspirations. Steph is still Steph. Draymond's still barking and setting the tone. Jimmy Butler is bringing that toughness and experience. And now, with DeAnthony Melton, Seth Curry, and even Al Horford coming in, there's a clear vision. A mix of veterans, shooters, and defensive dogs ready to make a run. But here's the problem. Depth is still an issue. And let's not pretend like the Warriors can ride their core players all the way to June without support from the bench. We saw what happened to the Knicks. Tibbs pushed his young guys to the limit, and by the time the playoffs rolled around, they were gassed. And those were players in their early 20s. The Warriors have vets. They need smart minutes, smart rotation, and most importantly, health. So while Kuminga's return checks a box, it doesn't solve everything. There's still concern about the wing depth. Still concern about the shooting at the 3. Kuminga's not exactly known for lighting it up from deep. Sure, he could come into this season with an improved stroke and prove everyone wrong. If he starts knocking down shots at a 40% clip, then yeah, we're talking about a totally different conversation. But until that happens, until we see it consistently, it's just a hope. And hope isn't a strategy. The front office is clearly aware of the roster holes. One true 7-footer in Quinton Post. That's it. Horford can stretch the floor, sure, but he's pushing 40. There's no way you want him logging more than 25 minutes per night, especially if you're trying to preserve him for a playoff run. And Quinton Post, while intriguing, is still raw. He's not built to bang with Jokic, Embiid, or even the likes of Ayton or Hartenstein. There's potential, but potential doesn't win you games in April and May. You need reliability, and that's where the trade possibilities come back into the picture. The beauty of Kuminga's deal is that it's tradable completely. No weird partial guarantees, no split salary cap math. If someone big becomes available, the Warriors can move the full amount. And yeah, everyone's thinking the same thing. If the Bucks implode and Giannis wants out, Golden State is right there, ready to pounce. Kuminga's contract, plus some other pieces, gives them flexibility to make a splash. That 15% kicker, it sweetens the deal for any team looking to take him on. They get a young, athletic player with upside and a little financial boost to make it worth their while. Even if Giannis isn't the one that shakes loose, other names will float around. Maybe it's a disgruntled star. Maybe it's someone looking for a fresh start. But let's not ignore the reality. This is a last dance type roster. Steph, Draymond, Butler, they're not going to be around forever. The clock is ticking, and if the Warriors are serious about maximizing this window, they can't afford to hesitate. Waiting around and hoping Kuminga becomes that guy might cost them. Now here's a wild thought. What if things don't click? What if Kuminga struggles, the chemistry with Jimmy doesn't work, and the Warriors decide to pivot mid-season? There's been some quiet talk about LeBron. Yeah, sounds crazy, but imagine this. LeBron comes north for half a season, tries to win one more ring, then hits free agency. Kuminga, Moody, maybe even Buddy Hield go to the Lakers in a swap. LeBron pairs up with Steph and Draymond for one final run. It's not impossible. It would be seismic. It would be headline material for months. But would it work? That's the bigger question. Would that kind of move really put the Warriors over the top? All of this, of course, is hypothetical. The truth is, everything hinges on performance. If Kuminga comes out strong, plays with focus, shoots the ball well, defends at a high level, then none of these trade talks matter. He becomes untouchable. He becomes part of the new core that takes over when the old guard eventually steps away. But if it's more of the same, flashes of brilliance followed by inconsistency, then the noise is only going to get louder. And it's not just about Kuminga either. It's about how the rest of the pieces fit around him. Jimmy Butler is not a three-point sniper. Neither is Kuminga. You can't rely on Steph and Seth to be your only true threats from deep, especially when that puts you at a defensive disadvantage. Seth's shooting numbers are elite, 45% from three last season, but he's undersized. That matters when you're facing teams with bigger wings and aggressive perimeter scores. You need balance. You need versatility. You need guys who can shoot and defend. Right now, the roster has promise, but also has gaps. You look at the 3 and the 5, and it's hard not to feel uneasy. Horford, as good as he's been over his career, is not the solution long-term. And Quentin Post, for all his shooting upside, isn't ready for primetime battles in the paint. The Western Conference is stacked with elite bigs. If the Warriors don't shore up that front court, they're going to get exposed. Doesn't matter how good your backcourt is if you're getting dominated inside. So the next few weeks are going to be critical. Training camp is where decisions are made, where depth charts start to form, and where weaknesses either get addressed or exploited. There's still time for this front office to make moves. There are veterans out there looking for a home, minimum deals that could provide value, or even trades that make the numbers work and keep the Warriors under the dreaded second apron. Something has to give, because if it doesn't, they're walking into a minefield with no armor. And fans won't be patient, not with the legacy of this core on the line. Another concern that just won't go away is the shooting at the wing. The modern NBA demands spacing, floor balance, and three-point threats at nearly every position. When you look at this Warriors team, Steph Curry is obviously the engine, the sniper, the gravity that warps opposing defenses. But beyond him, where does the consistent perimeter shooting come from? Seth Curry gives you elite shooting in limited minutes, but he's not going to be a 35-minute-per-game guy. Buddy Hield, while deadly from deep, is a defensive liability. And then you have Kuminga and Jimmy Butler, both athletic, both powerful, both capable of slashing to the rim and defending multiple positions, but neither is a consistent three-point shooter. That lack of spacing can suffocate the offense, especially in playoff scenarios when defenses tighten up and take away the first and second options. If Kuminga doesn't take a leap from deep, or if Butler doesn't at least become a threat teams have to respect from beyond the arc, the entire offensive scheme risks becoming predictable and easy to contain. What the Warriors are trying to recreate is a functional blend of the old and the new. The grit and IQ of veterans like Draymond and Horford, combined with the speed, energy, and upside of younger players like Kuminga, Moody, and Post. But that mix only works if the pieces complement each other. Right now, there's a sense that they're trying to jam puzzle pieces into place and hoping they fit. For example, Al Horford at the 5 makes sense in theory. He stretches the floor, makes smart passes, and is still a solid team defender. But he's not going to survive chasing young, springy centers all year. His age, his mileage, it's going to show especially in back-to-backs and late-season games when fatigue starts creeping in. He'll help in stretches, no doubt, but the Warriors can't rely on him to be the answer in the paint all season long. That leaves a glaring problem in the middle. Quinton Post is the only true 7-footer on the roster, and while he showed flashes with his shooting touch and floor spacing, he's still a project. He's not ready to bang bodies with Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, or even more under-the-radar guys like Steven Adams or Isaiah Hartenstein. The physical toll of that position in today's game is brutal, and without Looney, who is always that reliable, tough-as-nails body in the paint, the Warriors don't have a clear answer for how they plan to deal with the West's elite bigs. That's a huge issue, because no matter how many threes you can hit, you still have to rebound, protect the rim, and defend the pick and roll against some of the most skilled bigs the league has ever seen. That's why a lot of people, fans and insiders alike, are expecting another move to happen. The front office can't look at this roster and genuinely believe it's complete. Not with these holes. Not with this much uncertainty at the 5. And it's not just about talent. It's about durability. Steph, Draymond, Horford, they're not kids anymore. Injuries are going to happen. And if they don't have reliable depth to carry the load when guys miss time, this season could unravel fast. That's why Kuminga's deal, for all the drama it caused, might be the most important asset Golden State holds right now. Because it's movable, it's valuable, and it's attractive to teams looking for young talent in exchange for veterans or disgruntled stars. Whether that turns into a trade for someone like Giannis, or even a shocking pivot like LeBron, remains to be seen. But what's clear is that the front office has kept their options open. They've structured these contracts in a way that gives them flexibility. They've resisted locking themselves into long-term deals that could backfire. And they've left just enough wiggle room under the salary cap to make a few more additions before the deadline. That's smart management. But it only works if the on-court product delivers. If Kuminga doesn't take the leap, if Seth and Buddy aren't enough shooting, if Horford starts to slow down, then the team is going to need to act fast. And even with all this talent on paper, the Western Conference is unforgiving. Denver isn't going anywhere. The Lakers are reloaded. The Suns have firepower. Oklahoma City's young core is rising fast. The Timberwolves just got a taste of playoff success and want more. There is no margin for error. You can't afford to start the season slow, hoping things will figure themselves out by January. Because by then, you could already be buried in the standings. That's what makes this next stretch so important. Training camp isn't just a time for development. It's a time to evaluate, to make hard decisions, and to either double down on your roster or admit that changes need to happen fast. It also puts pressure on Steve Kerr and his coaching staff. This isn't the same roster that dominated from 2015 to 2019. The principles are the same: ball movement, unselfishness, defensive versatility. But the personnel is different. The rotations will need to be adjusted. The minutes will need to be managed. And more importantly, the offensive system will have to evolve to accommodate the new faces. You can't expect Buddy Hield to defend like Klay Thompson. You can't expect Al Horford to protect the rim like Andrew Bogut. And you can't expect Kuminga to become Harrison Barnes overnight. This version of the Warriors has to carve out its own identity. One that maximizes what each player does well and hides their weaknesses. That's not easy, and the clock is ticking. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Whispers are growing louder around the Golden State Warriors camp, and it all centers on an unusual remark reportedly made by head coach Steve Kerr. According to people close to the locker room, Kerr was overheard saying, "He won't play with me anymore," in reference to one of his own players. The words were brief, but sharp enough to spark immediate speculation about an internal rift. In an organization known for its emphasis on chemistry and togetherness, such a phrase has quickly become the fuel for debates and doubts. No official names have been tied to the comment, but the rumor has swept through NBA circles with speed. Some believe it was directed toward a younger member of the roster who has struggled to fit into Kerr's rotation. Others think it could involve a more established figure, someone whose role has recently shifted and who may be less than thrilled about reduced minutes or tactical adjustments. Whatever the case, the mystery has become bigger than the statement itself. Kerr, usually measured in his public tone, has rarely let emotion spill beyond the baseline. That makes this report all the more intriguing. Was it a slip of frustration during practice? Was it meant as a message, calculated to reach certain ears? Or was it simply taken out of context, another case of words stretched beyond their intent? The lack of clarity only heightens curiosity, with fans and media alike dissecting every possible angle. The Warriors, a franchise built on both dazzling offense and carefully managed personalities, cannot afford distractions as the season grinds forward. A single comment may not seem like much, but in the hyper-analyzed world of professional basketball, even a whisper can feel like a thunderclap. For now, nothing is confirmed, and no official statements have been released. Yet one thing is certain. Steve Kerr's alleged remark has turned into the latest riddle surrounding a team that rarely stays out of the headlines for long. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.